Hello, my lovely anatomists and physiologists. We are ready to talk about the control of the digestive system, and we're going to begin by talking about neural control. We'll see there's also quite a lot of endocrine control of this system. So we'll be doing both of those pieces. When we talk about the neural control, let's think about what sorts of sensations we're picking up. So we're going to be picking up information about taste. We're going to be getting information about even just like thoughts of food, smells, the sight of food. Okay. And then also just the actual sort of movement of food through the system. So we'll see, of course, when we talk about taste and when we talk about smells, we're talking about chemoreception. So we're going to have chemoreceptors that will be involved in this conscious sort of level of control, but we'll also have chemoreceptors throughout the whole length of the digestive tract. So what I think is super interesting is different hormones are secreted, different enzymes are secreted based on the composition of the food. So that means there's a means of detecting not just at the taste level, but throughout the length of the tract. Is this a carbohydrate? Is this a protein? Is this a nucleic acid? Is it a lipid? So to me, that's super interesting. We're going to see mechanoreceptors involved. And so here very much we're talking about like a stretch receptor. So we'll see just the movement of material into the stomach and the stretch of the stomach, movement of material from the stomach into the small intestine and the stretch of the small intestine, movement of material into the large intestine and the stretch of the large intestine. So we'll see that's going to be very important in the localized control of the GI tract. And then we're also going to see osmoreceptors are going to be important. And osmoreceptors are talking about detecting osmolarity. And so this is talking about fluid and electrolyte regulations. When we are talking about the neural control, we have two major divisions of the nervous system that will be involved. So we are going to see here that enteric nervous system that we mentioned in brief early on, and we said, okay, we're going to talk more about it here. And so this is the time to really talk about it here. So ENS is standing for enteric nervous system, and we'll see this extending from the esophagus to the anus. We're going to talk about this as intrinsic innervation. You can think about this as very localized control, or we can talk about these as short reflexes. A short reflex is one that's totally bypassing the central nervous system. So this is all happening localized right there on location of the GI tract. And what we're going to see is that this is consisting of 100 million, oh my word, neurons. And here we're talking about sensory neurons. So some examples might be the chemoreception, mechanoreception, or osmoreception. Motor neurons, so that's of course the control of the tissue. And then the interneurons, which are these neurons that are bridging the gap between sensory and motor. Let's highlight short reflex. I mentioned it as being bypassing the central nervous system. So that means it's happening on location. It's not going to the spinal cord. It's not going to the brain. Okay. And when we talk about this collection of neurons, we'll see that they make up what's called the myenteric plexus, and then also what's called the submucosal plexus. And so when we're talking about the myenteric plexus, this of course is located in the muscle layer. The myenteric plexus is going to be controlling then motility. And we're talking here about both the rhythm and the force of those contractions. Either we'll see mixing food or moving food stuff through the tract. When we talk about the submucosal plexus, it makes sense that this is located in the submucosa. So of course it's being named for this particular layer of the GI tract. This is going to help regulate secretions. So we'll see there are secretions coming directly from the stomach and from the tissue of the small and large intestine. Sometimes this is a mucus secretion that's important in coating those epithelial cells of the mucosa to prevent too much abrasion, to protect from the hydrochloric acid. So this might be an example. And then we'll also see it's going to react to presence of food. And I'm going to put food in quotation marks because remember, it's not really food. After it's mixed in with our saliva, we talk about that as the bolus, right? And then as it enters the stomach, we talk about that as chyme. So depending on where we are in the GI tract, we're going to have a different name for that stuff we ingested. All right, let's look at what happens in terms of our long reflex. So the other, of course, part of the nervous system that's involved in the control of the digestive tract would be the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. And we will talk about this as the extrinsic control. So we're outside the tract. We can talk about this as a long reflex. Long reflexes involve the central nervous system, so that's spinal cord or brain level. We know already that the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system is going to decrease the GI secretion and motility. GI meaning gastrointestinal tract. We can detect the sympathetic division also decreasing our saliva. And so this is why you may experience dry mouth when you're, feeling extremely stressed. We also see, of course, the parasympathetic division is doing the opposite. So it's going to increase the GI or gastrointestinal tract secretions and motility. We can talk about it as increasing saliva production. And so even just thinking of food might cause more moisture in your mouth, might cause you to drool a little bit. When I was in high school, I had a buddy and we would talk about like the best kind of nap was the nap when you'd wake up and you had the drool coming from your mouth onto your pillow because you'd totally relaxed. So that increase of saliva production, in part there you're probably not swallowing a lot, but also that's a marker of the parasympathetic division being very active. We'll see too that our parasympathetic division is going to synapse onto the enteric nervous system. So it's going to help to control or regulate. So there is talking back and forth between these divisions. Let's also pick out something we'll talk about more later. Let's also go ahead and list what's called the cephalic phase. And let me add a detail to that. When we talk about the cephalic phase, what we're talking about is control of the stomach. So I'm going to write control of stomach in parentheses here. When we talk about cephalic phase, cephala is talking about your head. So this is the conscious control of your digestive tract. So here we're talking about enteric nervous system, which is localized, autonomic nervous system, which is unconscious, central control. But then we also said, oh, you can be consciously aware of taste, thoughts, smells, and sight of food. And this can be part of your regulation. So that's directly connected into this cephalic phase. So obviously there's also some conscious level processing that's going on here. So when we do talk about the cephalic phase, this is a very rapid, you see food, you think about food, you smell food, and you start to increase. We're going to see a hormone called gastrin. So we'll talk more about that later. That's going to increase your gastric, I'm going to say activity. We'll see that that means both release of hydrochloric acid, pepsin, increased motility, and then also we'll see here increase of saliva. And of course, then this is being coordinated by the central nervous system, specifically conscious level processing, which means the cerebrum. All right, y'all, stay tuned. I have a little bit of information to give you regarding the blood supply of the digestive tract. As always, take care of yourselves and each other.